Now, saving the season is a relative term, but he did certainly turn the tide. What turned the tide for Doug Pederson after being so non-committal? 3 hours after making the statement you just heard, he said this.
After going through the film and really looking back even to last week and the preparation and everything, I'm gonna continue with Jalen this week as the starter. There's no issue with Carson and I look at maybe what I do or how I call a game. Maybe I can approach it a little bit differently, moving forward that way. Listen, teams have a lot of film on your starter. They have ways to prepare for your starter, and they can take away certain things, and we've got to be able to compensate for that. But there's been no issue between us.
So if you're watching SportsCenter yesterday and you saw this wouldn't qualify as breaking news. I think it would qualify as obvious news. So, Jay, why did Doug Pederson essentially have to even go out there a second time? Why do you think after hearing both of those comments, he just couldn't have saved us all the trouble and just said it Monday morning, since we all knew it was a fait accompli? We all knew it was going to be Jalen
because he had to watch the tape, Zubin. He had to watch the tape to make the ultimate decision about how Jalen Hurts played. Look, we all knew it was obvious, and I know Key's going to sit up here and say the coaches doesn't have to give you anything. He doesn't need to say anything. Then why did he give us something 3 hours after he just said he didn't make a decision? Like, if you're going to say it's due to scheming, then why not wait until Wednesday or Thursday to make those comments? It's my only thing about saying it feels like Doug Pederson, and he said it during that, because I listened to the entire transcript. He said, I was thinking of Carson. It still feels like Doug Pederson is thinking about, how do I need to properly articulate what is going to happen with this team so I don't lose Carson Wentz? Instead of going in the other direction, which is, how do I give Jalen Hurts as much confidence as possible moving forward after a significant win? Now, you don't have to break down Carson or belittle Carson in order to raise Jalen Hurts up. You can do both at the same time. I just don't understand why you wait 2.5 hours and then all of a sudden you come to an ultimate conclusion that, hey, yeah, by the way, Jalen Hurts is our starter after going back and reviewing the tape and understanding how significant of a game he had against the number one defense in the NFL.
Key, are you speechless for the first time in your life?
I don't know if you've been in the studio too long by yourself, those who've been with that comment. But anyway, no, I was waiting for you to re-tee me back. I thought you were going to re-tee me back up. But anyway, this is what I would say. You're a coach. You want to assess what goes on. I understand we saw it from the television standpoint. They saw it from the sidelines. The teammates rallied around it. But from a coaching standpoint and a coaching your assistants and all of them, you guys got to get back in. You got to look at the film. You got to see the things that you did right, the things that you did wrong, your opponent, watch a little clip on the opponent, see what makes the most sense, and just take your time doing it. There's no rush to do it. You're off today. What's the rush? Tuesday is your off day. So, okay, I named him the starter 3 hours later. Whippy, big deal. I could have did it immediately after the game, or I could do it Wednesday morning doing my presser before practice. It doesn't matter. It only matters to people that's so fixated on what's going to happen. Oh my God, he's got to give him his due. He's got to extend an olive branch to him. Don't worry about fracturing Carson Wentz. It's not fracturing Carson Wentz. It's the respect of trying to figure out how to make sure that the quarterback room stays a certain way, just in case you have to go back to Carson Wentz. And I think that's what Coach was doing there, and I have no problem with it at all. We all knew that Jalen Hurts was going to eventually become the starter for the second week in a row. I guess not that big of a deal.
I guess, Key, though, if you from a football insider expert perspective, you watching that game, I know that you're not a coach, but you watching that game, did you conclude after that game that Jalen Hurts was not significant in that game? Was there any doubt in your mind that you thought, hey, after this game, I may have to go back to Carson Wentz?
Nothing at all suggested that, Jay, but I also understand how coaches do things. If you would have asked me immediately after the game, what would have happened? I could have got the manual. I would have turned to page 250 and said, don't answer this question. Wait 24 hours, cool down period, before I answer question about quarterback starting. No one does that. They don't do it. Think about it. Sean Payton waited forever to make a decision on Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. That's just what they do. That's just what they do. Period.
I don't know. I never heard Sean Payton talk about after Taysom Hill won a game saying, hey, well, still a question about Jameis Winston. Will he play? Like, it didn't go back and forth. All I'm saying, it feels like this is one of those scenarios where if you're Jalen Hurts. But that question
wasn't raised to Sean after Taysom Hill's first victory. No one came at him and said, is it Jameis Winston? Because Jameis Winston is not making $130 million and $107 million of guaranteed money.
I understand.
So that question never was posed to Sean.
It just feels like it's one of those scenarios for Jalen Hurts that he has to actually go take this thing that Doug Pederson doesn't want to give it to him, that he needs to go take it, which he had the mentality you have to do anyway. There's no surprise. But it just feels like he has to go against not only the teams he's playing against per weekend, but he also has to go against a head coach who doesn't necessarily believe that he has what it takes to energize a team and sustain that.
See, I wouldn't say that, though. I don't think that that's the case with Doug Pederson at all. I really don't. I think Doug Pederson wants to play Jalen Hurts because he knows he gives him the best chance to win. He's just doing it the way that he was taught how to do it as a head coach, coming under Andy Reid's and those type of guys. That's how I see it.
I hear you.
Drafted in round 2 for the moment, QB1. Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. On the way, how the Browns and Ravens combined yesterday to do something the NFL hasn't seen in 98 years. That's next on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Now I would just like to introduce y'all to the man, the myth, the legend, the MVP.
You didn't go with the poop tease.
How would you describe this one?
My dog fight.
I mean, if you wrote a movie about this, people wouldn't believe it.
Lamar.
You got to start now. Season ended soon, so we just let it finish.
Mayfield trying to escape, turns the corner, running away from Wolf. Touchdown! Baker Mayfield for the score.
Backup Trace McSorley. He is now in the game for the Ravens.
Trace going to keep it, and he slips down.
Trace hurt his left knee there. He went down really awkward.
Lamar comes in for 4th down and 5. Jackson trying to throw for it, and he's got it. Marquise Brown hangs on to the football and scores. This is for 55. And Justin Tucker has done it for Baltimore.
That's why you have one of the best kickers in NFL history to seal the deal, a Hollywood ending, so to speak, for Brown and company. Anything but for the Browns. Let's go there. Aaron Goldhammer, the host of the Really Big Show on ESPN 850 in Cleveland. Aaron, what a difference 92 days makes. You get waxed in week 1 by Baltimore 38-6. You go down to the wire in the final seconds last night. I'm assuming there's no such thing as moral victories when you're trying to turn the tide of a franchise. What's the feeling in Cleveland this morning after that gut punch last night?
Well, look, I only want to speak for myself because we got into a heated debate on our post-game show about this last night. We posted a poll on Twitter at ESPN Cleveland. 50% of fans said there was such a thing as a moral victory, and 50% of fans said no. But the way I felt, look, you're never going to be happy after you lose a game like that. But for the Browns, who has wanted to play in a game like that for 20 years, to be going toe-to-toe with the MVP on Monday Night Football as your heart is about to jump out of your chest in a wild back-and-forth affair where you score 22 points in the fourth quarter and they kick a 55-yard field goal to beat you, that's the kind of pain you want as a sports fan. It didn't knock them out of the playoffs. It didn't end their season. It's not like we'll never see the Browns play again. They play in 6 days on Sunday Night Football in prime time again. So while I understand why no one's going to be happy in Cleveland today, I think that everyone should feel proud of how far the Browns have
Exactly.
come.
Goldie, what's your confidence level in the team right now?
Sky high. I think that they are one of the 4 best teams in the AFC. I think Baltimore is really good when they're right. They went through this wild outbreak, really scary with COVID, losing guys, and they just weren't right for a while. And I think they're kind of coming back together now. But, as long as Baker Mayfield is playing the way he played last night, bringing you back from a 2-touchdown deficit in the fourth quarter against a team that went 14-2 last year, I think the Browns, have the offense. They can score enough points to really hang with anybody. They're not a flawless team. I mean, the back half of that defense is bad to begin with and banged up. It's a bad combination of bad and injured right now. So they've got some holes and they've got some things in the offseason that they need to fix. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but I think they're a team that could win a playoff game or two.
Aaron Goldhammer, host of the Really Big Show on ESPN 850 Cleveland, is joining us on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin this morning. Baker Mayfield went out there and performed at an all-time high, in my opinion. What do you think the Browns are saying this morning as an organization about his performance, especially since they got to figure out what to do with him moving forward?
Well, I think the last 2 weeks, Baker Mayfield has played the two best games of his career. So the arrow is pointing up for him. He made one costly mistake last night. He threw an interception deep in his own end that immediately led to a touchdown. But he bounced back from that. I thought that was the most important thing. He showed real mental toughness, and he made all the throws in that game last night that he needed to make. It just so happened that Baltimore had the ball last. But a couple good weeks of play doesn't mean that you back up the Brinks truck and start shoveling Pat Mahomes-style cash into Baker and Emily Mayfield's garage. So I think the Browns are going to pick up the fifth-year option on Mayfield's contract headed into next season. If they win a couple of playoff games, I mean, I think the door is open for a longer-term contract with him. But I think he'll definitely be the Browns quarterback now next year for sure. And then once they've seen him for 2 years in this offense, I think they'll have a better handle on exactly what they have. There are some days this year where Baker Mayfield has looked like a franchise quarterback, and he still has to beat Pittsburgh and Baltimore, though.